Imagine this. You've spent your entire life inside a dark cave. You were born there. You've never seen the outside world. You're not alone. There are others beside you, all chained from the neck down, facing a blank wall. You can't turn your head. You can't move. Behind you, there's a fire burning, and between you and the fire, some people walk by holding objects. But you can't see them. All you can see are the shadows of those objects cast on the wall in front of you. And since you've never seen anything else, you believe these shadows are real. You point at them, you give them names, and you build your entire idea of reality based on these shadows. Now imagine, one day, someone comes and frees you. At first, your eyes hurt. You're confused. You don't want to leave. But they pull you toward the entrance of the cave. You step outside, and for the first time, you see light. The sun blinds you. It's painful. But slowly, your eyes adjust. You see trees, colors, people, sky, and finally, the sun itself. You realize the shadows you saw your whole life were just illusions, not the truth. You've been living in a lie. Now imagine, you go back into the cave and try to tell the others what you've seen. What do you think will happen? They won't believe you. They'll laugh at you. They might even get angry because their entire reality is being questioned. And maybe they'll fight to stay in the cave. Sounds like a sci-fi movie, right? Like The Matrix or Inception? But this brilliant story was written over 2,400 years ago by Plato in his famous book, The Republic. It's not just a story. It's a deep metaphor. Plato is telling us most people live in their own caves. Not physical ones, but mental caves. We are trapped by false beliefs, social media, traditions, and half-truths we've been told since birth. The shadows on the wall? They represent what society tells us is true. Success, beauty, power, money. The journey out of the cave, that's the journey of education, self-discovery, and philosophy, where we question everything, seek truth, and open our minds. But truth is uncomfortable. At first, it blinds us. It challenges everything we thought we knew. But in the end, it sets us free. This is one of the deepest ideas in human history, and it came from a book that's not just about politics and justice, but about how to truly live. And that's what we're diving into today. The Republic by Plato, a guide to power, justice, truth, and the real meaning of life. Let me know and clarity while keeping it relatable for your audience, ages 16-40. Part 1. What is the Republic about? Let's start with the basics. What is the Republic? Well, the Republic is not just a book. It's a philosophical masterpiece. It's one of the most important and influential works in Western philosophy, like a foundation stone for how we think about justice, leadership, and society even today. It was written over 2,400 years ago by Plato, one of the greatest thinkers in history. Plato was not just a philosopher, he was a student of Socrates and the teacher of Aristotle. That's like being trained by Yoda and then training the next Jedi Master. Now, here's what makes the Republic unique. It's not written like a textbook. It's written like a dialogue, almost like a movie script. The main character in this dialogue is Socrates, Plato's real-life teacher. Socrates goes around asking questions, talking to people, and challenging their beliefs. The entire book is a series of conversations where Socrates discusses deep, powerful, life-changing questions with other characters, like, what is justice? Is it just about obeying laws? Or is there something deeper? What is the ideal society? What would a perfect city look like? Should everyone be equal? Or should people have different roles? Who should have power? Should we be ruled by the majority, like in a democracy? Or by the smartest and wisest, like philosopher kings? How should we live a good life? Is happiness just about pleasure and success? Or is it about wisdom, virtue, and inner peace? These questions are still relevant today. Think about it. We still ask, what makes a leader good or bad? Why is there injustice in the world? Can we ever build a fair society? And what does it actually mean to live well? Plato didn't write the Republic just to entertain or impress. He wrote it to make us think deeply, to challenge our beliefs, and to guide us toward a better life, not just as individuals, but as a community. It's not an easy read, sure, but once you understand the core ideas, it changes how you see the world. And in this summary, we're going to break it all down with examples, analogies, and modern connections. So you don't just understand the Republic, you feel it. Ready? Let's dive into the first big idea. Let's get to the core of the Republic. The biggest question Plato explores is this: what is justice? Now, on the surface, that sounds simple, right? Most people might say, justice means doing the right thing. But what is the right thing? And right for whom? To find the answer, Plato, through Socrates, starts a conversation. Different people give different definitions of justice, each one revealing how people view the world. Let's look at a few. One man, Polemarchus, says, justice means helping your friends and harming your enemies. It sounds fair at first, but Socrates challenges it. What if your friends are actually doing wrong, and your enemies are innocent? In that case, you might end up rewarding the bad and punishing the good, so that can't be justice. Then comes Thrasymachus, a bold and aggressive speaker. He says, justice is nothing but the advantage of the strong. In simple terms, might makes right. Whoever is in power decides what's just, and the rest follow. It's a brutal view of the world, where justice is just a tool for control. But Socrates doesn't agree. He argues, if rulers only act for their own benefit, they will harm the people, and that's not justice. True justice must benefit everyone, not just the powerful few. So then, what is justice according to Socrates? He gives a completely different answer, one that surprises everyone. Socrates says, justice is when everyone in society does the role they are best suited for and doesn't interfere with others' roles. Let's break that down with an example. Imagine your body. Your heart pumps blood. Your lungs give oxygen. Your stomach digests food. And your brain makes decisions. Each part has a job. And when every part does its role well, your body is healthy and works in harmony. But what if the heart suddenly wants to think like the brain? Or the stomach wants to start pumping blood? Your body would fall apart. Socrates says, society works the same way. In a just society, lead the brain, use wisdom to guide. Warriors or soldiers, the heart, protect and enforce order. Workers and producers, the stomach and muscles, handle business, farming, building, and so on. When each class does its role, without jealousy, ego, or trying to control the others, the whole society is just and balanced. So justice, according to Socrates, is not about helping friends or harming enemies, or serving the powerful. It's about order, harmony, and everyone doing what they're naturally good at, like instruments in a symphony. When every note is in the right place, the music flows beautifully. But if one instrument tries to take over the whole performance, the harmony is lost. And here's the twist. This idea of justice doesn't only apply to society, it also applies to your soul. Plato believed that your soul also has three parts: reason, like the rulers; spirit, like the warriors; desire, like the workers. When reason rules, spirit supports, and desire obeys, your soul is in balance. And that's a just person. So for Plato, justice is not just a political idea, it's a way of life. It's about inner balance. It's about knowing your place, your purpose, and living in harmony, both in the world and within yourself. In today's world, this idea still hits hard. Think about it. When people chase jobs they're not meant for, just for money or fame, stress and chaos follow. When leaders act out of greed instead of wisdom, society suffers. When we ignore our inner voice of reason and let desire control us, we lose ourselves. Plato's idea of justice reminds us to stay aligned. Part 3. The Ideal Society. Now that we've explored Plato's definition of justice, let's dive into his vision of a perfect society, what he calls a just city, or the Kallipolis. Plato believed that a truly just society must be organized and structured, just like a healthy body or a well-run machine. To explain this, he divided society into 3 main classes, and each class has its own unique role. Let's break them down. 1. Rulers, the philosophers. These are the wisest people in society. They are not interested in power or money. They are seekers of truth and wisdom. Plato believed that only those who understand what is truly good and just should be allowed to lead. In other words, philosopher kings. Why philosophers? Because they don't chase fame or wealth. They chase knowledge, and they ask the deep questions like, what is justice? What is truth? What kind of life is best for everyone? They are like the brain of the society, making careful, rational decisions for the good of all. The soldiers and protectors. These are the people with strength, courage, and a strong sense of duty. They are trained to defend the city from enemies and maintain order inside it. Guardians are loyal, disciplined, and emotionally strong, not just physically. They don't rule, but they enforce the laws and protect the ideals of the society. They are like the heart of society, full of spirit and energy, keeping everything safe and stable. 3. The workers, farmers, artists, and business people. This is the largest class in Plato's society. These are the people who build things, grow food, make clothes, sell products, and keep the economy running. They don't need to worry about politics or defense. They focus on what they're good at, producing goods and services that make life comfortable and meaningful. They are like the stomach and limbs of the body, doing the hard work that keeps everything alive and moving. So what's the point of this 3-class system? Plato's message is powerful. No class is better or worse than the others, just different. Each class is equally important. Justice happens when everyone plays their part without trying to dominate others. Real-life example? Think of a football team. The coach is the ruler. They plan the strategy, analyze the game, and make big decisions. The defenders are the guardians. They protect the goal and keep the team safe. The strikers and midfielders are the producers. They create chances, score goals, and bring results. Now imagine this. What if the defenders tried to coach the team? Or if the strikers refused to pass because they wanted all the glory? The whole team would fall apart. But when everyone focuses on their role, supports each other, and works for the team's success, that's when you win the match. That's Plato's idea of a just society. Not everyone doing the same thing, but everyone doing the right thing, the thing they're best suited for. And here's something deeper. Plato didn't just describe this system to show how society should work. He believed that this structure reflects the human soul itself, with reason, spirit, and desire as its three parts. A just society is like a mirror of a just person, balanced, harmonious, united. And that's what Plato believed would lead not only to a better government, philosopher king, who should rule. Now imagine this. You live in a country where the smartest, kindest, and most thoughtful person is the leader. Someone who doesn't care about money, fame, or power, but only about truth, wisdom, and doing what's right for everyone. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, that's exactly what Plato imagined, and he called this leader the philosopher king. Wait, a philosopher as a king? That sounds a bit strange. When we think of philosophers, we imagine people sitting quietly, reading books, debating abstract ideas, not leading armies or managing governments. But Plato believed the best leaders are the ones who don't want to rule in the first place. Why? Because people who want power too much are usually dangerous. They often care more about themselves, their image, their control, their ego, than they do about justice or truth. But philosophers are different. They ask deep questions like, what is the good life? What is truth? How should people treat each other? What kind of society helps everyone grow? They love wisdom, not wealth. They're not driven by personal gain, but by the desire to understand and help others. Plato puts it this way: until philosophers become kings, or kings become true philosophers, there can be no end to the troubles of states. In other words, only when wise people lead can we have a truly just and peaceful society. Real-life example, Gandhi. Let's bring this to life with a real-world example. Think of Mahatma Gandhi. He wasn't a king, but he led a massive movement, not through violence or ambition, but through calm strength, truth, and moral courage. He wore simple clothes, lived a simple life. He thought deeply, spoke truthfully, and most importantly, he led for the good of others, not himself. Gandhi didn't want power. In fact, he gave it up again and again. That's exactly the kind of person Plato believed should rule. Someone who serves because they care, not because they crave control. But there's a twist. Plato knew that in the real world, philosopher kings wouldn't just appear out of nowhere. So he suggested a special system of education where the brightest minds are trained from childhood. In math, philosophy, and ethics, in physical strength and discipline, and most importantly, in self-control and humility. Only after decades of training and testing would a few rise to the top, ready to rule with wisdom, not ego. Let's compare. Most leaders today are chosen through popularity, political parties, or money. But Plato believed we should choose leaders the way we choose doctors, by their knowledge, character, and ability to help. You wouldn't want a flashy doctor who doesn't know how to treat patients, right? So why should we accept leaders who don't know how to care for a country? In the end, Plato's idea of the philosopher king is not just about government. It's about a vision for leadership, where wisdom beats wealth and truth beats power. It's a powerful reminder, even today, that leaders should be servants, not rulers. That real leadership comes from wisdom, not ambition. And aimed at an audience aged 16 to 40. Part 5. The Allegory of the Cave, Escaping Illusion. Alright, now we're diving into the most famous and powerful part of the Republic. The part that has inspired movies, books, and deep conversations for over 2,000 years. It's called The Allegory of the Cave, and it's Plato's way of explaining how humans experience reality. Let's break it down like a story. Imagine this. You've been trapped inside a dark cave your entire life. You're chained up, facing a wall. Behind you is a fire, and between the fire and your back, people walk by carrying objects. But you can't turn around. All you see are shadows of those objects on the cave wall. Shadows of people. Shadows of animals. shadows of trees. Since that's all you've ever seen, you believe those shadows are the real world. You give them names. You make stories about them. But everything you know is just a shadow of the truth. Now imagine this. One day, someone breaks free. At first, the light hurts their eyes. They're confused. They turn around, and for the first time, they see the fire, the objects, and eventually, the exit of the cave. They walk outside, and they're blinded by the sunlight. But slowly, their eyes adjust, and they begin to see the real world. The sky, the trees, the sun itself, the source of all light and truth. That person has now escaped the illusion. They understand that what they once believed, the shadows, were just poor copies of reality. And now here's the twist. That person goes back into the cave. Why? To help others escape. To show them the truth. But the others laugh. They don't believe him. They say, "You're crazy. This is the real world." Some even get angry because he's challenging their beliefs. And sadly, many choose to stay in the cave because it's comfortable, familiar, and easy. So what does it mean? The cave is our world of illusions, false beliefs, shallow opinions, media manipulation, social pressure. The shadows equals what most people believe without thinking. Trends, fake news, filtered images, and half-truths. The journey out of the cave, education, thinking deeply, asking hard questions. The sunlight, truth, wisdom, and reality. And the person who escapes and comes back? That's the philosopher, someone who seeks truth and wants to help others do the same. Modern example, think of the Matrix. Neo lives in a world that feels real, until he discovers it's all a computer simulation. When he takes the red pill, he wakes up in the real world. Painful, harsh, but true. That's exactly what Plato was talking about. Taking the red pill is like leaving the cave. Another example, social media. Many people spend hours scrolling, comparing their lives to filtered posts and fake lifestyles. It's easy to believe those shadows are real. That success means followers. That beauty is about filters. That happiness is a product you can buy. But stepping back, thinking critically, and searching for truth, that's like walking out of the cave and seeing the real sunlight. So what's Plato really saying? Most people live in mental chains, following beliefs they've never questioned. Real wisdom means breaking those chains, questioning the world around you, and searching for deeper truth. And the true philosopher, the true leader, is the one who dares to see the light, and then comes back to help others see it too, even if it's hard. Final thought, Plato's allegory of the cave isn't just a story. It's a challenge to all of us. Are you living in the cave? Are you just watching shadows? Or are you brave enough to step into the light? Because once you see the truth, you can never go back to the shadows. 6, educational, the battle within. So far, we've talked about justice in society, ideal leaders, and escaping illusions. But now, Plato takes us even deeper, into the human soul itself. Because before we fix the world, we have to understand and fix ourselves. Plato says the soul has 3 parts. Think of it like a team living inside you. 1, reason. This is the thinker, the planner, the logical part of you. It asks, what's the right thing to do? What makes long-term sense? 2, spirit. This is your energy, your drive, your courage and pride. It fights for what you believe in, but it can also get angry or defensive. 3, desire. This is the part that craves pleasure. It wants food, comfort, fun, scrolling, gaming, attention, right now. And here's Plato's key idea. A good life equals a balanced soul. He says, reason should be the leader. Spirit should act like a loyal warrior helping reason. Desire, it should be under control, not dominating you. If desire is in charge, your life becomes chaotic. If spirit is in charge, you become too aggressive or reactive. But when reason leads, your soul becomes calm, focused, and in harmony. That's Plato's version of inner justice. Let's break it down with a real-life example. You've got an exam tomorrow. You sit down to study, but here comes the internal team. Desire, let's take a break. Just 10 minutes on Instagram. Or maybe a snack. Spirit, no way. We're better than this. We've got to prove we can do this. If we study now, we'll feel confident tomorrow. We'll succeed. Now, who do you listen to? If desire wins, you procrastinate. If spirit takes over, you may push too hard or burn out. But if reason leads, you create a smart plan. Study, take breaks, stay motivated. That is inner justice. That is the kind of person Plato calls truly educated. But what is education really? According to Plato, it's not just memorizing facts. It's about turning the soul toward truth, like guiding someone out of the cave. Education should train your reason. It should help you think clearly, act wisely, and understand what truly matters in life. In other words, Education isn't filling your brain with info, it's aligning your soul. Another example. Imagine a car. Your desire is the engine, full of power, wants to go fast. Your spirit is the fuel, giving energy and drive. But your reason is the driver, steering the car safely toward your goal. If the driver is asleep, the car crashes. If the engine controls everything, you'll go too fast and lose control. But if the driver, reason, is alert, the car runs smoothly. That's what Plato wants for every human being. A soul where reason is in the driver's seat. Why does this matter? Because Plato believed a just society only happens when individuals are just inside themselves. If you can control your desires, if you can channel your spirit, and if you can guide everything with reason, then you become a wise, stable, and strong person. The kind of person who builds a better world. So what can we take from this today? Don't let short-term desires run your life. Don't act only from pride or emotion. Train your mind, strengthen your reason, and use your spirit to support the path of wisdom. That's not just Plato's philosophy. That's a timeless guide to becoming your best self. Final thought. Your soul is like a city. If it's ruled by wise leaders, reason, and protected by brave guardian spirit, and kept in order by satisfied workers' desire, then you will live in peace within yourself. That's the real education. And that's real freedom. Let me know when you're ready for part 7. Let's talk about something that might surprise you. Plato didn't support democracy. Yes, the man whose ideas shaped Western thought was deeply skeptical of the political system many of us believe in today. Why? Because Plato believed that democracy could be dangerous if not done wisely. Here's his argument. In a democracy, every citizen gets to vote. Sounds fair, right? But Plato asks, what happens when most people vote based on emotions, not wisdom? What if we choose leaders who are charming, loud, or entertaining, but not wise, honest, or capable? Plato feared that democracy could turn into mob rule, where decisions are made by popularity, not intelligence. Real-life example. Imagine a ship in the middle of the ocean. Now imagine the crew is arguing over who should be the captain. But instead of choosing someone with sailing experience, they vote for the one who tells the best jokes, or gives the most snacks, or shouts the loudest. Would you trust that ship to reach its destination? Plato says, a state is like a ship. It needs a trained navigator, not just a popular one. So what did Plato want instead? He believed in what we'd now call a meritocracy, rule by the wise. He imagined a government led by philosopher kings, not because they were rich or powerful, but because they were deep thinkers, lovers of truth, and didn't even want power. Because, and here's the key, the people who are best fit to rule are those who don't want to rule. Controversial, right? Today, we value freedom, voting rights, and equality, and rightly so. Democracy has given voice to millions, but Plato's warning still hits hard. When we choose leaders based on popularity, when we follow emotional speeches without critical thinking, when we let anger or fear decide elections, we risk trading truth for comfort and wisdom for noise. Modern example. Think of reality TV stars becoming political leaders. Think of online influencers gaining huge followings and power, even if they lack depth or knowledge. Plato would say, you're putting the ship in the hands of someone who's never even touched a compass. Plato also criticized other systems. Tyranny. Rule by one cruel leader, fueled by fear. Oligarchy. Rule by the rich, who care more about money than justice. Democracy. Rule by those who chase honor, often leading to pride and war. Each system, he believed, falls apart when reason isn't in charge. That's why his ideal government is one where leaders are trained from childhood in philosophy, ethics, logic, and self-control, so that when they finally lead, they do it for the people, not for themselves. Key takeaway. Plato's not saying democracy is all bad. He's saying democracy without education, wisdom, and self-awareness is dangerous. He's asking us to think, are we choosing leaders based on truth? Or are we just following the loudest voice in the room? What does this mean for us today? Whether you live in a democracy or not, Plato's message is powerful. Don't be a passive citizen. Don't vote based on fear, flattery, or hashtags. Ask hard questions. Choose leaders who seek truth, not applause. Because the future of a society depends on who we trust to steer the ship. Part 8. Why does this still matter today? Let's pause for a second. Why should we care about an old book written 2,400 years ago by a man in a robe, in a time without phones, planes, or even pizza? Because even though the Republic comes from ancient Greece, its questions are the same ones we're still asking today. What is justice? Who deserves power? How can we build a better world? What does it mean to live a good, meaningful life? This isn't just philosophy. It's a mirror. Plato holds it up to our modern world and says, look closely. Are you living in truth? Or are you just watching shadows on a wall? The book teaches us to think deeply. Not to blindly follow trends, not to vote because of a TikTok ad, not to believe something just because everyone else does, but to question, to reason, to reflect. Because if we don't think for ourselves, someone else will do the thinking for us. Modern example. Today we scroll through social media, full of influencers, ads, hot takes, and viral outrage. But how much of that is truth? How much is shadow? The Republic warns us, don't get trapped in the cave. Be the one who climbs out, who sees clearly, and helps others do the same. It also inspires us to become better people. Plato says, a just society starts with a just soul. That means letting reason lead your actions, balancing your emotions, mastering your desires, working together like a team, each person doing their part. It's not just about big governments or rulers, it's about you, how you live, how you treat others, how you grow. So why does this still matter today? Because truth still matters. Because wisdom is still rare. Because every generation must ask, are we building a just society, or just living in someone else's illusion? Plato's book might be ancient, but its wisdom, timeless. Final